I'd like to know, honestly, your opinion on whether you think it is the proper role of government to prevent parents even from drugging their children and sterilizing them before they reach the age of reason.
Chase's position, and therefore our team's position, to start out with what's most important, is that the government needs to lay off of this area that has not been settled in terms of science, has not been settled in any number of contexts.
How could you do
As
that
you
to
know,
children, Mike? These are children. They have no option to say yes or no.
I'm not
These things,
arguing with
I
you,
want
Austin.
to.
I'll
You're
just
saying that's your
explain.
ticket.
How
I want
about
to
you
know
let me
your
explain our
opinion, Mike.
position first, and
Don't
then you
dodge
can
me.
argue with
You
me.
tell me your take, Mike.
I will. And I promised you I will, and I will. Chase's position and our team's position is that it's okay for the government to step in and make sure that you wait until you're 18 for surgical procedures that are irreversible. And Chase's position is that with regard to chemicals, this is a rapidly evolving area technologically, and therefore it's a gray area. Regarding my personal feeling about the use of these chemicals, is completely irrelevant, because as a libertarian, I believe that my opinion about what you should be doing with your life and with your children is irrelevant. Now, you've also asked me about public policy. I personally believe that we know enough about these chemicals to require children to wait until an age of consent.
You have said that it is irrelevant what your opinion is. I believe that you, as a leader, make it relevant because you are a person who is representing the values and beliefs of many people who self-identify as libertarians. So what I would like to know, Mike, is do you find it to be immoral personally to offer sterilization drugs to people who have not reached the age of attainment?
My feeling is that we should be preventing, as a society, children from using these chemicals until they're able to reach an age of consent.
So you do believe it is the proper and necessary role of government to prevent parents from physically, surgically castrating their children, but the question of drugs that would castrate children, that should be left entirely between the parent, the doctor, and the child.
That is Chase's position and our team's position. My own personal feeling is that there's not a great deal of difference between some of these drugs and surgical procedures because they are irreversible.
People that you know very well that are these lefty woke parents that are just trying to fit into their mom's soccer club so that they can all compete in the Victim Olympics and have a trans child because they're all such desperate attention whores.
I am very much concerned about the social contagion. I am very much concerned about decisions being made by people who don't have the full panoply of information. I do not estimate that families are making these decisions lightly, and I certainly don't want to denigrate the decisions made by others.
Would you take your own kids to a drag queen story hour, drop them off, and then come back an hour later?
I don't like exposing children to things that I consider to be, sexualized.
You can recognize that the people who are critical of Chase Oliver and his positions are not critical of Chase and Oliver and his positions and your tickets positions on these things because we're homophobic. It's because we're concerned about the rights and the protection of children.
I personally don't believe that our government is worth a damn in almost any regard whatsoever. But if we are going to use government for anything, let it be to protect our children. Chase's position is not that you should be dropping off your children in any particular area for, of education or entertainment.
Would you drop your kids off at a drag queen story hour and come back an hour later?
I mean, would you drop your kids off at a movie? Yeah.
I've been to dozens and dozens of drag shows in my life, and I've never been to a drag show that they didn't whip out a plastic dong or that there wasn't explicit language, people drunk, acting like perverts. That's what drag shows are all about. Remember, we're talking about identity politics here, Mike, which is really the big question of the day, is people who identify themselves through their sexuality, saying specifically things like, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children.
We're coming for your children.
Nobody supported the right of gay marriage harder than myself or the Supreme Court decision. But again, boo me all day long, libertarian anarchists. But I just don't think you ought to be able to sell heroin to children or perform sexual acts in front of them. And I do think that it is important that for Libertarian Party candidates who likely are not going to win the election, that you do be moral leaders. There's no need to act like a politician or evade or dodge any questions when you're running for president as a third party. You might as well stand strong and firm in what you believe.
This is a public policy office that we are seeking. I am not running to be your pastor. I am a conservative guy. I am socially conservative. Anyone who asks me in a different context how they should raise their kids, I'll tell you, get into a good Bible-based school and, avoid exposure to weird crap. I don't have a problem telling my friends that. But as a matter of public policy, I just don't believe that that's an appropriate conversation.
If the culture buys into cultural Marxism, and if people are, wearing Che Guevara T-shirts, the government should allow something like that, but it should be highly discouraged because we find
discouraged by whom?
I mean, like, am I not making myself clear? I mean, I'm saying
no,
right now that
discouraged by whom? I do not believe it should be discouraged by the government. I don't think.
I'm not saying it should be discouraged by the government. I'm talking about the culture here, Mike. I'm talking about being.
Yes, I think that you should discourage bad behavior in our government.
Right, we should
in
discourage
our society.
We should be moral leaders, right? Virtue, right? We should encourage virtue. Society breaks down without virtuous men and women behaving virtuously, which means that we have to have morality, or else we're going to lose our liberty.
And I have never said anything other than that.